What's up, everybody? Welcome to Rewind 245. I'm here to give a little review for Strikes to Zero. I just recently beat this game. This is not really like a proper review. It's just mostly my thoughts and opinions on it, and I'll give like pros and cons about the game. You know, I mean, if I were to give it a score, I'll give it like a 7 out of 10. But I want to go a little bit more into depth, a little bit about the game, what I like about it and what I don't like about it. But we'll go over here and play the first mission since it's much more straightforward. Um, so yeah, let's start with the pros. Um, so yeah, with the pros, I think there's good things about the game. For one is the combat. Like the combat in the game is actually really good. Oh, excuse the audio. And you can hear the music's pretty good as well. But the combat is really the main star of this game. Like, it plays well, is very action oriented and like the combat just makes you feel empowering. Like it makes you feel like a beast, like a fucking boss. And like it really gives you that empowering feeling whenever you're taking down ships and other enemies. But yeah, like the combat in this game is really amazing, and that's really the main focal point of this game. It's a space combat game, and it does that extremely well. You know, it does the space combat very, very well. Um, with that said, the controls of the game are also very good. It takes a little bit of time to get used to the flying in the game. Um, it does take a little bit of time to get used to the flying of the game, and there are options for you to to put it into invert or whatever. But it took some time. Like it just felt awkward because I guess I don't play many space combat games, and but it's actually my first actually, and it just felt really weird. But quickly I was able to capture the or get a handle of the controls, and it was starting to feel good. So yeah, the controls are really good. Like flying is pretty straightforward, and then once you get into the strike suit, when you start actually doing combat, like that sort of clicks, right away. And I never had a moment where I was like, oh wait, I forgot how this went. No, the controls were like just ran in my brain pretty easily. Um, I guess another pro is the aesthetic. Now the game doesn't look like graphically impressive, like it doesn't look like this ultra realistic game or like this very detailed or beautiful atmospheric game, but the aesthetic is really nice. Like it looks like it has a nice style. It's not a unique style, but it is a nice style that is going for like when you go through the more levels and the backdrop, like right now we're on Earth, I think that's Earth, but the backdrops are very interesting. They do interesting things to differentiate the aesthetics. Like they can put like a sun in the background that looks very fiery and dangerous, and they change it up here and there. Sometimes it looks too plain, like it's just black space, but for the most part they do a good job changing up the background and the look of the background and the aesthetic. So yeah, that's another pro. And I guess one last pro is the replayability. Now the campaign is not very long. It's like about, I don't know, maybe 5 hours, 6 hours. Each mission times you on how long you've taken to beat the mission. And I'll say it took me like roughly, yeah, 5 hours or so. But there is replay value because there is like a ranking system, like each stage you beat, ranks you from bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. And depending how you do, of course, the better you do, the more you unlock. You unlock, new ships, weapon upgrades for your ships, armor upgrades for your ships, all those different things. So the better you do, the better the unlockables for your ships. And not only that, there is another game mode. I didn't really get into it, but there is another optional game mode that I don't think has much to do with the campaign, but it's nice that there is some level of replayability in the game. So if you are wanting to know that if there is a long-term commitment for this, there is if that's all in your interest because there is a good amount of replay value. So yeah, now let's switch over to the cons, things I disliked about the game. For one, the story, I mean, like in the beginning of the game, they do an introduction and like it's very interesting, like the concept is very interesting,
Mobius, you
but
all
it
set?
just doesn't really go anywhere.
Copy that, Reynolds. Just waiting for
Over
clearance.
time, like
Full
most
gate
of
is
the
live,
story is
Proteus.
told
Please
through
confirm
this,
your flight
like
plan.
audio, like it just characters talking
Flight
through
plans changed.
audio,
I received new
and
orders about
it
5
just
minutes
becomes
ago.
backdrop. Like
I've
you
been
just it
rerouted to
just
some
becomes
R&D
like
station in the middle of
like
nowhere.
something you don't really care about.
Could be
Like all
worse
you
than
really
back
care
here,
about is the
right?
combat in the
Still,
game,
I haven't
and the
received
story
an
just
update.
becomes an afterthought.
Hang
And
on.
it does seem like they try to, give an interesting story, but like it's kind of hard to care
It's coming
about
through
it
now. You're good to
when,
go.
it's kind of hard
Copy
to really
that.
care about it
Moving
really
into forward
when one
position.
the combat is probably the best part of
Okay,
the
Adam,
game,
stay close.
and
We'll see her off.
most of the story is told through audio. It's not really told through any proper cutscenes that actually give you a detailed analysis of what the story's about. Because you're in combat, and while you're in combat, you're also kind of having to keep in mind like, oh yeah, there's a story, and you need to kind of keep track on it. It has potential to
File
be a
says you were
great
suspended
story,
on a
but
psych
it just doesn't hit the
evaluation.
mark exactly.
It says
Um,
Adams was found dazed and
there
confused
is a
on
couple of
Orbital
cutscenes here and
17.
there, but yeah,
Adams
like I
displayed an
said, it just
inability to
doesn't.
follow
They
orders.
don't do much with it. Like
Now that
really,
I
the
can
only
relate to,
like there is
it's how I
characters
got
in the
bounced
game,
back here.
but really, I don't really care
It
about
also
any of
says
these
you can't remember
characters.
anything about it,
And they
which
sort
is
of give a
pretty
twist at the end of the
convenient.
game, but it sort of comes out abruptly, and it sort of comes out in a way where I just don't care. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's kind of interesting, but you could have done a better job fleshing it out. So yeah, the story doesn't really do much. So if you're gonna play this game, it's not, you shouldn't be playing it for the story. You should play it for the gameplay. But yeah, like I said, the game. Well, another con that I'm say right now, even though gameplay wise it's great and the combat is great, it gets really, really repetitive. Like right now, like it's fine. Like this is the very beginning of the game. It's very straightforward. It's very simple, but it gets very repetitive. All it is just shooting, shooting, shooting. Blowing shit up. And yeah, it's fun for a while, but it just starts getting like, oh really?
Locking
Like
in
because
coordinates
the
to our next
missions are not
destination.
very unique or varied. Like it's just the same thing. Like, oh, shoot this or protect that. Like that's all it really is. It's just you shooting a specific thing, or you pretend protecting specific things. But there's really no variety in this. And it's not only that, is that it really gives you no time to give you it gives you no time to like take a to like take a take a breath, really, because once you finish an objective, it's like right away you need to do something else, and then okay, you finish that right away, do something else. Like it really becomes overwhelming. Like, and that's another con for me. Like it gets overwhelming. Like okay, like this is too much. Like yeah, the action is great, but it just becomes a little overwhelming, way too repetitive. There is no room to breathe. There is no variety of missions. All it is shoot this and protect that. Really, until the very end of the game, you have something that's a little bit different. And of course, the very beginning, like right now, you're, evacuating, or not evacuating, but, um, how do you call it? We're just looking after ships or whatever. But like, 95% of the game is really just action and it's really fun. But like, if you're gonna play this game, I recommend you play it in bits. So like, just play like a chapter a day, or play like a chapter every now and then. Like, if you binge through the game in one session, you're gonna get really overwhelmed. It's gonna really exhaust you because it's just so much action, and it's action is good, but there's too much of it, and I just wish there was a little bit more variety and objectives, um and not just variety and objectives, but also a variety in enemies. Like there's only like three enemy types, and like I don't have a huge problem with it because the game does is able to um um, make it entertaining for me to actually destroy these things. But like at the same time, there's really no variety in here. But yeah, that's really about all the cons that I have. My pros were combat, controls, aesthetic, and the replayability. Even though the story's short, there is replay value here. And the cons are the story is repetition, and because it's so repetitive, it gets very overwhelming. You know, the lack of variety from enemy types to objective types. There's like this, you know, like I said, there's unlockables, but they basically all have the same functions as far as I can tell. But yeah, that's all I basically got to say about that game. Like, it's good. I give it a 7 out of 10. I enjoyed it for the most part. Like yeah, like I said, when I'm in combat, it's really, really fun and it feels very empowering. But then it just wears on you. It just gets repetitive, and like you sort of need to step back from it just for like a moment and be like, okay. Like there was times I wanted to go back to it, but I would scratch my head and be like, I just don't want to deal with all that action. You know, I'd rather play something a little bit more calming or casual or whatever. But yeah, that's all for my thoughts on Strike Zoo Zero. There's a director's cut. It's on the PlayStation 4. It's pretty good. I don't highly recommend it, but it's a good game to check out. It was on sale for PlayStation a couple weeks ago. It was only for $4, so I don't feel too bad about buying this game. Like to me, it was worth the $4. Like it was definitely a nice experience, and it was definitely pretty fun despite some of its flaws. So thanks for watching. Have a good day.